Nico Hulkenberg makes a big comeback to Formula One, a major NHRA team will not compete this season, and Bubba Wallace might be going from the 43 to the 42 in 2021. Yo, what is up everyone, my name is Jack Krause and welcome back to the episode of Inside the Lines in the first day of August. And for I think the third time in a row, this is going to be a very late night episode. I think the past two episodes I did were at 11 o'clock at night. This one is going to be out maybe 1 or 2 in the morning. So for anyone that is up late at night, that can't sleep and need to watch something on YouTube, this episode is for you. Now, like I said, we have 3 stories to talk about here in today's, well, I should say this morning's episode. One from Formula One, another from the NHRA, and then we ended off in NASCAR. But let's first start off with Formula One in Silverstone. Now, we all know what happened over the weekend with Sergio Perez. He tested positive for COVID-19, and as a result of that, he is not allowed to participate in this Sunday's, or should say, in tomorrow's British Grand Prix. Well, someone has to replace him. And like I said in the last episode, if you guys remember, I said it'll come down to 2 people, Esteban Gutierrez and Nico Hulkenberg. And it turned out to be Hulkenberg as a driver that Racing Point tapped to replace Perez this weekend. And all this came in such a short amount of time. Let me show you a graphic of Nico Hulkenberg's day in 24 hours. We start off on Thursday at 3 p.m. and this is, I believe, in British Standard Time. He got the call from Racing Point to replace Perez to drive the car. And then at 7 p.m. he landed in the UK. That's right, he wasn't even in the country or wasn't nowhere near Silverstone. 1 hour later, he arrived at the Racing Point factory. Now this was fairly easy because I believe Racing Point is, I think, under 10 minutes from the Silverstone circuit, so not that far of a drive. From 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. or 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. I should say. Then Hulkenberg was in the process of getting his seat set up and ready to go. Then on Friday, 7 a.m. in the morning, he went onto the simulator to practice for the Silverstone circuit. And then 1 hour later, he arrived at Silverstone. And then another hour later, went back into the simulator. And then an hour and 50 minutes after that, he returns to the paddock area for the first time after his test results came back negative. And then 10 minutes later, he was out on the racetrack to begin free practice number 1. And he actually was pretty good for a driver that hasn't been in F1 so far this season. Remember, he last competed in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix back in 2019. And it was actually pretty good. 9th fastest in the first practice session and 7th fastest in the second practice session, I should say. But obviously, when you look at his teammate, Lance Stroll, 3rd fastest in first and fastest in second. Racing Point has got some pace underneath those Pepto-Bismol cars here in Silverstone. And hey, you got to give credit to Nico Hulkenberg. I think, even though, yes, he's only been out of the car for 3 races, still, it's a team that it's a car that he's never driven, the RP20. Still, you're out of the F1 scene for a bit, so you're not sort of used to getting prepared. Usually, during the off-season, teams and drivers start to get ready for the 2020 season. Hulkenberg didn't have to do that because he didn't have a ride, so he still had a slight disadvantage on the field, and for him to be in the top 10 in both practice sessions, I think is pretty impressive. And I think everyone in Formula One that's going to watch this race on Sunday, they all want to see Hulkenberg do well. I think after his career in Formula One and how close he has been to getting a podium, I look at Germany in 2019, how close he was to getting a podium, but then slid off into the wall, I think in the second to last or the last turn of the track. He's just been so close, and I think it was very unfair that Renault let him go for Esteban Ocon. So that for him to get an opportunity at a car that is competitive, I'm not going to say it's not a race-winning car like Mercedes, but it's pretty competitive this year. So who knows? Hulkenberg might surprise a lot of people and put up a good effort in Silverstone. I certainly hope he does. Obviously, I've been a fan of Hulkenberg for a while, mainly because I'm part German. He's German. I sort of have that relationship. But yeah, I always want to see Hulkenberg do well, and hopefully he can deliver this Sunday. And now on to our next story, and this revolves around the NHRA. Now, they just started their season of competition, I think a few weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. And while the NHRA is getting back to form in 2020, one team will not be at the racetrack this season, and it is arguably one of, if not the most popular team in NHRA. John Force is 16-time Funny Car champion. His team, John Force Racing, have announced that they will not participate in the 2020 NHRA season. He said in a statement, quote, "We can't fight right now. We can't race right now. But with what I have, with the help of my sponsors and my own personal money, I can maintain. I had to protect my family, my employees, my teams, and my sponsors. What I built was a team that could win. All I have to do is get it to next year. It will look different, but I have all my department leads and my sponsors." And then in another statement, he said, "What I'm saying is that I'm going to prepare to come back next year stronger than ever. Watching all the people that went racing, NHRA, the track, Safety Safari, TV, the media, all the winners, all the teams, thank you for racing and keeping the sport alive. I am really heartbroken I'm not out there. If I had stayed and raced, I couldn't come back. If I step back now, I can. I want to be with all of you again, and I want to be competitive." Now, John Force, I mean, even if you don't watch NHRA, you know who he is. I mean, he's one of the most famous names in motorsports and auto racing. In fact, his whole entire family, I think, has been called the first family of drag racing. When you look at his daughters, Ashley Hood Force, Courtney Force, Brittany Force, so I should say Courtney Rahal Force. I don't know, I think something like that. But basically, simple as put, the Force family is arguably the most famous family name in drag racing. And for them to not be participating is, I think, a big blow to NHRA. But this is now going to talk about where I pass the question out to you, because I'm not into NHRA. Don't know all the ins and outs like how I would know for Formula 1 or for NASCAR. So if there's any drag racing people out there, if you could tell me in the comment section down below how big of an impact this is for John Force to not be participating, or his team to not be participating in NHRA this season. If this will have some sort of impact in terms of rating wise, or just overall attention wise this season. Tell me in the comment section down below. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. And now on to our final story. It revolves around a very polarizing character in Bubba Wallace. In terms as of late, because of everything that has happened revolving around Bubba, anytime I mention the name, it's going to cause uproar, whether in the comments, whether on just social media in general. So, yeah. Well, this is going to, I think, piss a lot of people off that want Bubba to not have any success. According to a report from Adam Stern, it has been reported that Bubba Wallace is a likely candidate to replace Kyle Larson / Matt Kenseth in the number 42 car for Chip Ganassi Racing in 2021. Now, this is huge news. And I think it's a big reason as to why we have not seen or heard about an extension or a deal between Bubba and Richard Petty Motorsports. Because at the start of the season, with everything that Bubba and Richard Petty Motorsports have went through these past 2 seasons, and with now the team, this whole season, we've seen the team pick up where they left off, making progress and actually being somewhat competitive, being in the top 15, being in the top 10. Hell, sometimes even in the top 5. It almost wouldn't make sense for Bubba to sign on right away. I mean, if your team's going on the up, you're not just going to jump off the train. Unless that train is to a very faster and more competitive race car, which I think is why we have not heard nor seen a deal yet. Now, for the people out there that are saying, why is he even in the conversation to take over the 42 car? He sucks. Is not even in the top 10 in points. He's not this, he's not that. Well, again, I said this earlier. Look at the equipment he's in. Look at what has happened between him and Richard Petty Motorsports. When he jumped on the train in 2018 for RPM, that team was in bad shape. I mean, 2017, Eric Almirola and Smithfield, a major contributor to the team, both left at the end of the season. So when Bubba arrived in 2018, the team was sort of just hanging on. So much so that there were even reports later that season that were suggesting that Richard Petty Motorsports might even shut down. It was that bad. So to go from shutting down to just, I guess you could say, living paycheck by paycheck, if I can go that far, to now being in the top 15 almost every single week, having a shot to the top 10, and even being in the playoff picture. Certain weeks, if you see at the end of NASCAR broadcast, when they show the playoff grid, they show the top 20. He's in there. He's not going to make the playoffs, but the fact that he's in the top 20, that still says a lot from where they were 2 years ago. So, and with Bubba Wallace being from at the bottom of the bottom, being down in the Mariana Trench from Richard Petty Motorsports to now being from where they are today, I think it says a lot on how good of a race car driver Bubba could potentially be. And I believe, personally, Bubba Wallace can win a NASCAR Cup race. If you put him in the right equipment, he can get the job done. And I think Chip Ganassi Racing will be a great spot for him. Now, I've seen a lot of people also say, why not Ross Chastain? Chip Ganassi has said he wants Chastain, he wants to keep Chastain, so why not go for him? Well, again, this is where that big S word comes into play. Sponsorship. When you look at Bubba Wallace and Ross Chastain does not bring in any money, and if so, very little. Compared to Bubba Wallace, on the other hand, he's got Cash App, who just came on board this season. You've got Worldwide Technology. You've got McDonald's, which, by the way, is also a sponsor of Chip Ganassi Racing. And on top of that, you've now got Beats. Yes, it's a personal relationship, but who knows? We've seen in NASCAR personal relationships grow into a much bigger partnership within the driver and the team. So it might start off as a personal relationship between Bubba Wallace and Beats, but it could grow on as the years go by. So Bubba, he's got funding behind him. And if in the world of NASCAR, specifically nowadays, if you want to get a top ride, you need to get some funding on your back. Unfortunately, Chastain just doesn't have that, at least not as much as Bubba does. And I think that would also eliminate the possibility of Chip Ganassi opening a third team. I know a lot of people have suggested, well, if Bubba goes to the 42 car, why not open, let's say, the 41 car for Ross Chastain? Again, it's all about sponsorship. Now, specifically nowadays, with how COVID-19 is going, I don't think anyone can afford to open another car. It's not going to happen. So I want Chastain to be in a top ride in the Cup Series, but with the way sponsorship and everything that's going on, I think if you were to pick between Bubba and Chastain, it makes more logical sense to go with Bubba. Again, not to discredit Chastain, I just think if you look at the overall package between the two, Bubba seems like a more likely fit. And that's going to conclude this episode of Inside the Lines. Guys, with this show, it's an informative show, but it's also an opinionated show. Tell me what are you guys' thoughts in the comment section down below on any of the 3 stories I talked about in today's episode. How do you think Nico Hulkenberg will do in his time in F1 this weekend and potentially next weekend in the 70th anniversary Grand Prix if he's back in that car? Do you think John Force Racing not participating in NHRA this season will have an effect on the organization? And what are your thoughts on Bubba Wallace potentially replacing or being the next driver of the 42 car? Because I will say this, it is very funny that Kyle Larson, who was fired for saying the N-word, the hard R, a word that is very offensive to black people, could be replaced next year by a black guy. Only in 2020 can something like that happen, I swear. But yeah, tell me guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. Of course, subscribe for more content, and don't forget to leave a like on this video. It really does a lot for this channel. The past few episodes, I've seen a lot of feedback, a lot of people in the comments giving me their suggestions, telling me that they like the videos, and again, thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoy them. I really put a lot of effort to try and make these come out as professional, but still, as good as possible. Want to quality as well as quantity. And I feel like this week has shown both of those things. I don't think I've ever done this many videos back to back to back. It's insane. And Sunday, we have another episode, the MDK Race Day, the NASCAR preview show from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Make sure you guys tune in for that Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. But until next time, my name is Jett Krause from MDK, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, actually.